Remember the other day when I started out a video about the Korea Baseball Organization wearing all of this? Mask, mask. And it was not that easy for me to breathe, much less talk, wearing this thing. So I tried running around the house with this just to see if it would be possible. And I mean, it's possible. Physically, it is possible. But if I did this for more than an inning, I'd be in serious trouble. And not just from a health standpoint, because the oxygenation level drop drastically when you're trapping your carbon dioxide in something like this, when you're doing increased physical activity like athletics, so you'd have more CO2, and it just scientifically would be more difficult for you to breathe that way. It would be more difficult for me to perform, i.e. make ball and strike calls for pitches that are, let's say, 90 to 100 miles an hour at a major league level, even if it is KBO baseball. Apparently, there's now actually a point to that little joke of mine, or a little experiment, if you will. A player has publicly complained about the umpires' ball strikes performances. Not calls on the bases, balls, strikes, performances. Said, remember, this is the opening series. It's only been a week, as they say. Only been half a week, for that matter. Player said, even though it's only been 3 games this season, a lot of players are really unhappy with the lack of consistency on ball strike calls. I'd like to ask all the umpires to please be more considerate of the players. We're all very confused with the inconsistent zone. I know the umpires are doing their best out there, but I just hope they should start seeing things from the players' perspective too. Not quite a Kinsler statement, but it's a criticism of the umpires. And I'm most curious about the KBO response to this. Because the KBO response was to tell the players, don't publicly criticize umpires, standard par for the course. But then they also said, quote, show more respect toward officials. Okay. But behind the scenes, they also said, hey, umpiring crew, entire umpiring crew, you're getting demoted to the minor leagues. The player complained about the crew, the entire crew is going down to the minors. I just want to point out a logical absurdity here, or inconsistency at least, because the season, as I said, is less than a week old. As the player said, it's only been 3 games. KBO crews of umpires are comprised of 5 people, not 4 like MLB, but 5. Therefore, 3 games, that's a maximum of 3 umpires behind the plate. The entire 5-person crew is getting sent down for the actions of 3, which were really the actions of 1, because the complaint was centered around Thursday's game. They just made it like anyone else would dramatize things and sort of embellish. They made it about all 3 games. So let's assume 3 umpires had terrible performances for the first 3 games of the season. So the entire 5-person crew is getting sent down to the minors. They do this in high levels of basketball here in the States, and it always confused me. Why are you punishing the entire crew for a call of 1 person? Now, I get it if the entire crew got together and screwed up a rule or something, but if it's something like, let's say, a balls and strike call in baseball, that's the plate umpire's call. You're not going to get anyone on the bases overturning that. Plus, it's a plate umpire who has to do this the whole time in addition to this, and that's just not good. If this happened, I'll put it this way. If this demotion idea happened in the United States, the MLB EUA, the Umpires Association, would be grieving against Manfred before he even opened his mouth. If this happened, heck, at the high school level in the United States, someone would file a grievance, and as an Ethics and Grievance Committee chairperson, I know that claim would be meritorious. There would be something to investigate, because in the States, it doesn't work that way. You remember, by the way, when the Korean baseball team, or at least one of them, joined the ABL, the Australian Baseball League, and suddenly we had more ejections of the Korean team than every other ABL team combined for a little while there. And that's just how Korean baseball is? I do not know. Maybe you do, so help me out with comments, but it's just something to think about. Anywho, I thought it was an interesting story to end with the footnote of the KBO reportedly has hired a new director of umpires. That was prior to the 2020 season, and already within a week, that new director has demoted an entire 5-person crew based on the game performance actions of no more than 3 of them. It's an interesting story. I wonder what staff morale is like in the KBO. And I also just want to respond to the player's very last point, which was, I just hope they should start seeing things from the player's perspective too. And I say, and my response is, well, maybe I would agree, but it's really hard. It would be really hard to see things from player's perspective, not just because you're behind the plate as opposed to in a batter's box, but I'd have a lot more faith in that argument if I didn't have to wear the mask, because you don't have to wear a mask, but I do. How do I see things from your perspective? As soon as your performance gets impaired to the same carbonization level as mine does because of the mask, let's talk about that. But until then, maybe the KBO will let the mask come off, but until they do, I really don't see how we can compare the ability to perform, because we're receiving different oxygen levels in our intake, especially after we've been huffing and puffing and breathing in this thing for a few innings of play. Anywho, story I wanted to share. CloseCallSports.com and Umpire Ejections on Twitter and Facebook. We'll see you on the site.